Everybody, welcome to the Rhett Sever podcast, where everybody has Sever fever and says it's on at last. Okay, hey, what's up? Today we have Gordon James Sandos Metz on our podcast. And yeah, we met in New York City. I was working at Empire State College, and he was a student there. And we just
Right.
bonded over being comedians. So yeah, welcome to the podcast. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
We also kind of bonded, I think, just because we're pop culture freaks. As you can
Yeah,
see behind me, I'm still obsessed with physical media because it has special features.
right. Me too. I still buy
Yeah.
CDs. I still
Okay.
buy CDs. I still buy DVDs. So yeah, I can relate.
I know. Do you think it's kind of weird how like the new releases are like a limited amount that they print because not a lot of people buy them, so they automatically become like collectible because they're kind of rare. Like for example, like I'll buy like the new Lana Del Rey stuff, and then everybody a year later wants to buy it for like times three of what I paid. Do you know is did you notice that? Like it's so weird.
I haven't noticed that.
I actually have like an eBay store because I'm reselling all my stuff because it's actually becoming collectible now because they've stopped making a lot of physical stuff. So now everybody, I think, is buying it up because they know it's disappearing or something. Isn't that
Wow.
weird? Yeah. So like on eBay, some stuff will be worth like a lot of money.
So you have an eBay store?
Yeah, I've been selling on there for the past 20 years. Do you know, I did the math, like how many whatever feedbacks I have. So then I
Uh-huh.
divided my feedbacks by how many like weeks are in those 20 years. And I've bought or sold something on average once a week for the past 20 years.
Wow.
That I think it's
Wow.
mostly buying stuff, but I've sold a lot of stuff too. It's crazy. Yeah.
What's the last thing you bought?
Like something in my like Madonna collection. I have everything Bob Dylan, Madonna, and like Jenny Lewis over there. But yeah, so where's all your shelves?
Uh, this is
Oh,
my
nice. That's
yeah. So
awesome.
that's those are my DVDs, my books. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and then you're also practicing the guitar, right?
Oh yeah. Let
How
me show
long have
you
you
that.
played guitar?
That's right here. That's my bass.
Nice. So how long have you played that?
It was a Hanukkah Christmas gift to myself.
Okay.
Uh, so I bought it this past Christmas as a gift to myself, and so I've only been playing it maybe like 10 months now. It's
Okay.
hard. I mean, I played a little in high school,
Okay.
and I was a tuba player in high school. And so I understand how to read music. I know how to play. I know how to play music, and I
Mhm.
know how to read music. But playing the bass was really difficult because, like I said, I played only a little bit in high school, not very much, and I didn't get to really learn it. You know, I was only playing like 5 or 6 notes, and I was only playing 3 or 4 chords,
Mhm.
and so I didn't get to really learn the bass. It was lent to me from the high school that I went to, like the high school that I was going to, like gave me a bass,
Mhm.
but it belonged to it was school property, so I had to give it back.
Okay.
So I never really. So I was only I was playing sheet music, and the sheet music that I was playing was pretty simple. So I never really got to get to like learn how to play chords. I didn't learn chord structure. I didn't learn. I didn't really learn the bass basically. So I mean, I'm learning it now, and it's been difficult. It's been 20 years since I've been in high school and played any instruments. So this is the first thing I played since I've been out of high school, and it's pretty difficult. But I
So,
love it. I love it.
yeah, if you ever need like a open mic to practice, a really great one is called Stark Reality. and it's like twice a month on Saturdays from like 2 to 5 at the 353 studios. So if you ever like, want to play in front of an audience, it's like a really cool open mic just in case like in the future if
Okay.
you ever want to practice in front of people, yeah.
All right.
Or you can
Cool.
just
Thank you.
like you can just text me or look on like Bad Slava, all the open mics, because
Yeah,
the open mic,
I
yeah.
know Bad
Oh
Slava
yeah.
very well.
Oh yeah. So you've gotten more back into stand up, right?
Yeah. So
Mm.
the Comic Strip Live is like my home club. That's like my home base.
Yeah.
That was the club that I started at when I started doing stand up. Probably when I came to New York 17 years ago.
Mm.
I think the Comic Strip Live was like the third club that I did, and I knew the
Oh,
history
okay.
of the club. Besides Dangerfield, is probably the oldest comedy club in New York.
And that's when you
So,
started
and
stand up when you moved to New York?
yeah, I moved here 17 years ago. This past
Mm.
April.
2004, right?
Um, Sorry,
2004.
2004. Yeah, I moved here
Nice.
from I moved here from South Carolina.
Okay.
Um, and I started doing stand up almost immediately. I did Ha
Nice.
Comedy Club. I did Don't Tell Mama. And then
So
the
those
Comic
places
Strip was
aren't so those places aren't open anymore, right?
um the Ha became something else. I think Don't Tell Mama still. These are in Hell's Kitchen, by the way. These clubs are in
Yeah.
Hell's Kitchen. I think they're called something else now. The spaces are different.
Okay.
Um, but those were like that was. But the Comic Shop was the third club that I did in New York. That I did when I
Yeah.
came here, and I immediately fell in love. Gladys Simon, who runs a room there on Thursdays,
Mhm.
took me under her wing. She had a husband named Bob, who since passed on,
Mhm.
who really was like instrumental in helping me develop my character, develop stand up,
Cool.
gave me a lot of good feedback. So it's been kind of like so when I stopped doing stand up, I really stopped doing stand up probably around maybe 9 years ago. I got really into photography, which is what I really came to New York to do, was become a photographer.
Oh, nice.
Like you, I was really obsessed with like Stefan Sednoe and Mark Romanek, and I wanted to work in film, and I wanted
Mhm.
to, work on sets. I wanted to really do a lot of um, set photography, and I was really interested in that. And I'm still doing that today. I'm still doing photography today. In fact, 2 days ago I was at the Bronx Free Press. I was in their offices waiting on an assignment. I got an assignment for Monday. So
Nice.
I'm still working. I'm still working as a photographer. But yeah, I mean, back to stand up.
Mm.
I started really getting back, wanting to do it. Maybe like six months ago. I really wanted to get back into it, and I really missed it. It was like it's a calling. I think we have a calling to do stand up.
Yeah.
It's like, and so I really missed doing stand up, and in the years that I was doing photography. And I got back in contact with Gladys, and her husband is like I said, since passed on. And she remembered me, and thought that I really had something special, and
Yeah.
wanted me to to pursue it, but take it seriously this time. I was not serious. I was not a serious comedian in my 20s,
Mhm.
and now that I'll be 40 next year, so I'm really time's getting short. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But
Yeah.
uh, but I really love doing stand up, and I really want to do it professionally. I wasn't serious in my 20s. In my 20s, I was too wild. I was too erratic in my behavior.
Mhm.
I was wild and loose in my 20s. And I think now,
Yeah.
now I could really do it and take it seriously, and be funny and irreverent on stage without drugs or liquor,
Okay.
without being drunk or inebriated or whatever. So
Did you do that a
um
lot? Um,
yes.
so so you only used to go on stage if you were on something, or not always?
uh
Sometimes you were sober?
very few
Oh
times. I mean,
wow.
I remember when we were in school together. By the way, like I'd done like I think a week before I had come back to Empire State College. I had done stand up in Boston,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like the first time I was like sober on stage
Okay.
in weeks. You know, I'd been
Okay.
booked in Boston, and I've been so it was the first time I've been sober on stage in a long time, and you know, I just remember being like, "Oh, this sucks." Like, I'm not, you know, because I don't really now when I'm on stage, I wait till after my set to drink.
Mm.
But um, but yeah, I was on stuff
Okay, so
quite a
that's
few things.
interesting. So is that because like was that a creative decision or was it because of stage fright or why do you think?
It was stage fright. It
Okay.
really was. I was really nervous,
Yeah.
and I didn't know how to kind of be my. I didn't know what you know. I was 24. I was 24, 25. I
Yeah.
didn't really know how to be myself.
Yeah. I had the same
And
thing.
I felt like I needed that to be funny and to be on, you know, to be spot on or whatever. I felt like I needed all of that, and I really didn't need it,
Yeah.
but it got in the way, and that was one of the things that you know, going back to Gladys, you know, she said to me like, when you come back, you know, listen, like you can really do this, you know, professionally, but you got to take it seriously because she remembers when I was in my 20s and not taking it seriously. So she, you know,
Yeah.
she's been really kind of on me about it this time around about taking it seriously and doing it as a career.
Yeah,
So
because I think what happens is because we had stage fright because I used to do a lot of characters too. And then one time I was at an open mic and this guy kind of blew my mind because afterward I was telling him like yeah um like I do characters because I try to make it so that cuz it helped with my stage fright to not be I guess personal or something. And so but then he said um what kind of like made me have a different perspective what he said was that well you're probably doing that to hide behind your character and if you actually be yourself you'll actually connect more with the audience and probably be funnier and so that's when I realized right I should maybe not be a character and try to be myself
be
on
yourself.
stage. And so
So
then I started doing more of that. But also I think I wouldn't have been able to do that right away because of my stage fright. So it is good that I kind of tricked myself into doing something so I could get used to the stage. And then once I was comfortable, um, I became myself since I was comfortable on stage and didn't have stage fright anymore after like 2 or 3 years. It took me
yeah,
a long time because I was like, um, like very visibly nervous and shaking on stage.
yeah,
And so, you know, as we know, that's not funny. And so,
no,
because then people start feeling for you, like, um,
yeah.
and so then they just feel bad and yeah. So you have to be very comfortable. And so I was just basically getting through that when I first started, and then so now I'm comfortable being myself and it's way better. So yeah. So
That's good.
did you try being now you're more yourself on stage or
Yeah, so I haven't been on stage in fact, you know, I haven't been on stage in 5 years. The last time I was on stage before these last two sets that I've done was with you at where were we? We were on like I think 18th Street or 19th or 23rd Street. It was a bar with
oh yeah
your
and it
friend
has like a
your
back room, right?
well there was like a stage next to kind of like next to the bar. And that was like
Oh,
2016.
that's right. That was Patty O'Reilly's. That was my say
Patty
everything
O'Reilly.
show.
So
Did I do
that
the
was the
thing?
last
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, did I
So
do
that
the
was the
thing
last
where we just talked, right? Or
Well,
did you
I did
do
like
a stand-up?
I bombed for like 5 minutes, I think, and you brought a guy on. It was your friend Liz,
Yeah.
and so that was the last time I've been on stage. That's the last time I've been on stage, and
Before
I
this last
basically
year,
like
right?
before these last two times. That was the last time I was on stage,
Okay. Yeah, because I
and
was encouraging you to get back
yeah,
to
you
it.
were,
Yeah.
yeah, you were. So that was the last time, and so I was really nervous coming back. I mean, I was really like trying to harken back to that time when I was bombing and not wanting to bomb anymore. I really wanted to come back strong. Yeah, my last time being on stage was this past Thursday. It's been a week. It was a week ago yesterday. I was on stage at the comic strip, and I did pretty well. I don't think I've sent you that set yet, but I didn't bring my notes
You
on
put it
stage.
on
The first time
YouTube?
I no.
Oh. Oh, okay.
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
don't want to put anything on YouTube. No, I don't want to.
Oh,
I
okay.
did that early on. I put a lot of stuff up on YouTube, and I would just look back at it and be like completely disgusted and just like, oh, this could be so much better, and the
Oh, so
whole
you
world is seeing this.
you took off your YouTube videos?
Yeah, I did. I
Oh, okay.
deleted my whole channel, so it's still on the
Oh.
internet someplace, But
Yeah, if you still have access to that account, um, you
yeah, I
can
do.
you can still just use it as an archive.
Yeah, that's what it is now.
Okay, cool. Instead of
Yeah,
like, basically like a cloud, really.
right,
Yeah.
right. When's the last time you did stand up?
I've been going to open mics for the past few months. I got more into it after the pandemic, and I've been going to like Stark Reality, Viviana's open mic at 353 Studios, various ones like Broadway Comedy Club has one on Monday, which which is funny. There's this one host on Mondays where she just kind of like she gives you feedback as you're doing your set for some reason. And I was just joking like
Is that
um
Janice?
yeah, Janice. And
Yeah.
I was just joking like, "Oh, Janice, that's why we let you heckle us cuz we love you." But then she got all like serious like it's I wasn't heckling. I give feedback. And it's like, "Jesus, whoa, like I was just like, well, I
Right.
don't know. It's just kind of weird because why would you give feedback in real time? Like,
Yeah.
it is the same as heckling. As much as she
Yeah.
doesn't want to admit that, like, I'm sorry, Janice, but it doesn't make any sense. Like, fine, give people feedback after. That's fine. But like as they're going along, that it's all about timing and you're messing up the timing.
Right.
But at the same time, it actually is a good thing to go to a mic and get heckled because then it gives you
Yeah.
practice with dealing with hecklers. So so
Yeah.
it's fun. So
I've been heckled quite a bit. So I think it's good for comedians to get heckled. I
yeah,
mean, you got to learn how to deal with it and keep going. You got to learn how
yeah,
to
yeah,
deal with the heckler, address the heckler, give them a little bit of shine, and then keep it going, and then just dismiss them. You have to dismiss them, and then keep it going. It's hard to do. You got to do it, and you got to do that in real time. So that's why it'd be funny for me to deal with someone like Janice because I'm very quick to be like, shut the hell up. I'm on stage. Be quiet. I'm very specific and very precise about stuff like that. So it would be interesting for me to do an open mic like that because
yeah.
I'd be on it.
One of a comeback that I've recently thought of that I was gonna do was no, but the real question is, what did your mother do to you? Like, I don't know, whatever. And I thought that would kind of be like a cool because like I think we're getting very like psychological, I think, in our culture now. Like we're using these words that like, that I don't think people really used unless they were in therapy or something. I think we're almost becoming our own therapists more and more as a society. Do you think?
I think that's
Like,
possible.
yeah,
I
like
don't
we're
really, I don't
analyzing
really know.
ourselves more. And
Yeah, I
so
think so.
I think just kind of getting right down to those like basic things that make us who we are, like traumas with our parents or family or whatever. And I think that would kind of be funny because people are finally, I think, as a mainstream, because it seemed like therapy was really only for like liberal people who accepted it or could afford it. But I
Right.
think it's becoming more and more mainstream, kind of like aliens and stuff like QAnon, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Basically conspiracies are mainstream now. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Because they used to
Yeah.
only be fringe, but the
Right.
internet has made conspiracies mainstream. That's so crazy when you
Yeah.
think about it. And
It is
so,
crazy.
because like even mainstream media has to like acknowledge the conspiracy culture, which is a very
Yeah.
bizarre thing.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think it's because they don't trust mainstream media because mainstream media is just about selling things to us. It's all about the advertising and the ratings. And that's why we're living in a culture of fear right now,
Yeah.
because people don't understand that the world's not more scarier. It just may seem more scarier if you turn on the news, because the news, um I guess they don't feel that they're very talented to basically just like get our attention just by entertaining us in a way. So they think they just have to give us fear to make us pay attention, because
Right.
they just want ratings for advertising. Because when the main like three or four channels back in the day had all the power, now they're losing that power because of the internet and cable. And so
Yeah.
and they're scared that they
Right.
can't make money. So they're not only selling fear, I think they feel fearful because their ratings and advertising revenues are going down because of the fracturing of media. So people don't get that, like, no, it's not a more scarier world. They're just giving us dumb reasons to be scared for, just to pay attention to sell advertising. And so I think a lot of people aren't realizing this and they're just scared, and
I
and
agree.
that's why, since they're scared, that's why we're being shoved into our political corners more,
Yeah.
and being divided more because of the fear.
Yeah.
But people don't get that, like, if anything, the world is actually, I think, less scary because of technology and a changing of our cultures, and we are evolving. I think the world gets less and less scary as time goes on. But the thing is, since we're connected, the few scary things that happen, everybody knows about because it goes viral.
Right.
So it's this weird thing where it's like there's less things to be scared of, but we're just paying attention to it more. And it seems like it's more scary when it's not. It's so weird, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but the thing is not a lot of people have processed it, what I just explained. And so they're just fucking running around with their head cut off, you know. And so, okay, so like for example, after George Floyd, and so many, because you know how like after George Floyd, basically online, you were forced to, basically it forced everybody to have the conversation, right? And so
Hmm.
since it forced everybody to talk about and say something about it, so then like tons of people said ignorant crap, and you realize like, oh, I didn't know that person was stupid and racist, or not, maybe racist, because racist means you need power, but they were bigoted or prejudiced, right? And so
Right.
you didn't know, like, so much of your friends and family were bigots or prejudiced or racist if they're in power of some kind.
Right.
um And until they said stuff, and then you had to like explain to them, like, no, like race doesn't cause behavior. Race is like eye color, it has no bearing on your worth,
Intelligence.
or yeah, your worth, or you know. And so I had to explain to people that like it's because of the systemic racism um and redlining of every way of life that makes people, because like a lot of people would say like, oh, then how come I've had so many um you know altercations with black people? And it's like, well, you might, fine, you might have had a lot of altercations, but understand that you probably had those altercations because they are dealing with racism every day of their life. And if you had to deal with racism every day of your life, then you'd probably be in a lot of altercations too. And so it's like crazy that I had to
Right.
explain this to so many people, um which I didn't think there was that, like so many people were still struggling with prejudice, even though you didn't see it before. It was kind of like um dormant or something, you
Right.
know um which is surprising because, you know after Obama was president. But then it makes sense because so many people were mad that
Yeah.
Obama had pigmentation, and they didn't
Right.
get that. No, it's because you think the pigmentation means something, and so you're gonna confirmation bias your worldviews into thinking it means something, and they don't get that their prejudice is the problem that's creating
Mhm.
all the negativity. It's not somebody's race. And so it was just crazy that how many people I explained that to. Like, and
Right.
I would still, I'd explain this to people, and people would still be like, okay, I guess, or I don't, or just disagree with me and get like um angry, thinking I was attacking them, or um or just like when you have, that's why I think people don't talk about it, because when you have a conversation with somebody on the premise that you're, talking down to them or whatever, or trying to educate them, then they get defensive, like, oh, I don't need to, like why are you talking to me, like I um you know have a problem, because they don't see. It's so weird because it's like so many people will be like, oh, I'm not racist. But then it's like, well, it doesn't, you can't just say you're not racist. If you fit the definition,
Of a
then,
racist.
or a
Yeah.
prejudiced person, then you fit the definition. It's not for you to say. And so that's what's so weird right now, is that people people have so many definitions of what that means,
Right.
and but they still think that race is causing behavior, and um make somebody lesser than or more than. And that's really like I think the definition. And I think it's because people don't talk in those blunt of terms about it. They talk about it and talk around it, but they don't really get down to like, no, race doesn't cause behavior, you know. It's
Mhm.
the hate of the race that causes the behavior. And because people don't get down to like those brass tacks of the issue, that I think that's why we don't get anywhere, because we're not teaching people literally what all this means. Do you think, or what?
Um, I do agree with you. I mean, I gotta say, I lost a lot of white friends, and over the past year, I lost a lot of white friends
That's
because
crazy.
I was trying I was trying to have these issues about race with people, and people still wanted to live in this sort of, they wanted to live in like a Norman Rockwell painting about, Americana, and about how America, how great America is, and American exceptionalism. And when you're black in America, you don't get to live in that fantasy. You know, you don't get to live in the Norman Rockwell painting.
Right, because he didn't paint any
So
black people, right?
exactly. So I
Right,
mean, you
yeah.
know, but to a lot of the white people, and I grew up in the South, so I mean, I'm from South Carolina. So I went to school. I went to high school with a lot of rednecks who were still carrying the Confederate flag and still believe in, you know, heritage and states' rights and all that bullshit.
Right, then but
And
those are
you
just
know,
code words.
right.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, and so when you confront them on their code words, you know, you actually say that states' rights and your heritage is really just, you know, you wanting slavery and Jim Crow. You know, then that's when they get defensive. And like I said, I lost a lot of friends, a lot of white friends in the past year. I'd say I probably lost maybe like 7 or 8 like really close white friends, people that I've known for 20 years. You
Wow.
know, over George Floyd, over Tamir Rice, over Philando Castile. You know, a lot of those police involved shootings. You know, a lot of the rednecks that I went to high school with didn't want to believe that the police were racist. They wanted to believe that the police were just doing their jobs. You know, and so when I would confront them and challenge them on their ideas and beliefs, they really couldn't handle it, and
Mhm.
they didn't want to believe. They didn't want to believe that the police, you know, began as slave patrols. You know, they didn't want to
Yeah.
believe that the police have quotas, you know, in certain neighborhoods. You know, they didn't want to believe. They didn't want. They had this sort of pristine idea about, you know, police and law enforcement in this country, and they don't want it disturbed. So I had to let a lot of those white friends go, and I'm
So
better
the
for
oh,
it.
sorry.
You know,
Yeah.
no, I'm better off for it because I can't. You have to leave people when people have poisonous ideologies. You have to like just leave them. You know, I've learned to just cut them loose and let them have their fun because um, you know, it's just not right. It's not,
Right,
you know.
it's so weird because it's like having that argument with them will only make them double down in what they believe. It won't let them
And
change.
they did, they did double down,
Yeah.
and so it was hard. I mean, it was hard because I mean, like I said, it was people that I've known for 20 years, people that I went to high school with, people that I really loved and cared about, people that I you know, went to rock concerts with, and you know, people that I really, you know, had an affinity for. And it was painful to lose them over like culture war issues.
Yeah.
But so it was, you know, like I mean, I think, you know, I you have to draw a line somewhere. You have to, you know, everyone's got their breaking point or their you know, you have to draw a line in the sand on certain issues, and that's what I
Right.
did, and I paid a price for it. I mean, I lost a lot of friends over it, but I'm a better person because I did it. You know, I didn't hold on to people who had poisonous ideologies, you know, because I cared about that friendship. I mean, you know, like I said, I lost probably like 7 or 8 really close friends over the last year or so. You know, maybe
So
more than that actually. Probably like 10 or 11. You know,
yeah,
like white people, specifically white people that I
yeah.
had been friends with, you know, for a long time that I had to let go of. So, I mean, it was really tough.
So what like you kind of listed some of the issues. Were those the things that where you were when you were arguing with them, like and first of all, was it like in person, over the phone, on text, or all of them? Or
But it was all most if not all that was on Facebook. You know, like I'd say maybe
oh, okay.
out of out of the out of the maybe 8 or 9 friends that I lost in the past year, I'd say maybe 5 of them we unfriended each other. You know, when like
Oh,
when you
okay.
break up with someone, you unfriend them. So we unfriended each other, and our friendships have basically just been considered dead and over. You
So
know,
it was
since then.
public texting on Facebook?
No, no, no. It
Oh.
was all in comments. You know, like
No,
in
right,
the
but
comment
is that
section.
that's public, right? On
Yeah, I
Facebook?
mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so okay, so
I mean,
that's
our friends
interesting.
saw it, our mutual friends saw it, and yeah. So I mean, our mutual friends saw it, and a lot of people. It was funny. I mean, the last person that I really that I unfriended, that I blocked, I actually blocked her. You know, was trying to argue that there was racism against white people, which I disagree with. I don't really think that that exists at all. I think it's karma, honestly. But because what goes around comes around.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, when she was trying to argue that there's all this racism against white people and that racism against black people was just kind of like either didn't exist or wasn't a serious problem, I would show her pictures of like lynchings. I would show her pictures of the Ku Klux Klan. I would show her pictures of Nazis, and she would get real defensive and act like that was all like a George Soros
Oh my
invention.
God. So she was just Republican based.
So
Basically, she was Republican. Were were basically these
yeah,
people conservative?
yeah,
A lot of your friends that you
yeah,
befriended, they're just
yeah.
conservative. Base, yeah, right.
They were
That makes
conservative.
sense.
One was a liberal. One was a
Oh,
liberal. One what
oh, that's
one I
interesting.
had.
Explain that one.
Okay, so I had a Southern Confederate flag waving liberal, but like a white liberal who like was like real Southern and waved the Confederate flag and believed in the whole states' rights and heritage bullshit. Who
Wait,
was
what
trying
was
to
liberal about them? What was liberal about that? I don't get it.
that they had black friends and that that's liberal for South
That
Carolina.
was,
That's liberal to
but that
yeah,
was the
that's
only
liberal.
liberal thing they had.
Pretty much that they had black friends and that they believed in Black Lives Matter. Like that liberalized them. That they believed in Black Lives Matter.
So they
And
wanted
she
it
was
both
trying to.
ways.
Let me tell you this. So she was trying to equate. She wanted to add like a black stripe to the Confederate flag to show solidarity with Black Lives Matter. Yeah, she wanted to add like a black.
Whoa,
You know how the
that
rainbow
is
flag they
deep.
added. You know how the rainbow flag they added a brown and a black stripe to the
Yeah.
rainbow flag. So my friend wanted to add like a black stripe, like a black square or triangle to the Confederate flag to show solidarity with Black Lives Matter. And I'm just like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. That's not really what we're looking for, when it comes to police brutality.
Wow.
And so I had to explain to her, about, again, going back to the Ku Klux Klan, going back to redlining, which these people who waved the Confederate flag, they all wanted. They all wanted redlining. They were all for lynching. They were all for Jim Crow segregation. They all wanted that and waved the Confederate flag defending it. And now that Black Lives Matter, it's like they wanted to jump on the bandwagon, because they don't want to be seen as racist. No white people really want to be seen as racist. So a lot of
Yeah.
them, they wanted to kind of incorporate their racism into what's popular, which is Black Lives Matter. So yeah, so I mean, we clashed. I sent her photos of lynchings, and I sent her photos of the Ku Klux Klan. I basically just trolled her,
Well,
you know, and,
basically
and she
pictures
couldn't
that,
handle it. And she couldn't handle it.
yeah, yeah, basically pictures that you don't see the white counterpart of, because the white counterpart of those kinds of pictures doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
Right. And that's
That's another reason
basically,
why I'm like, when I hear white people talk about racism against white people, I'm like, yeah, that's karma. That's karma.
yeah,
But
it's basically understandable and not as big a problem, obviously.
right, right,
And so when they try that argument, it's just, like I always think of like how the extremes fight, and both of the extremes are just crazy people fighting fire with fire, and the sanity is in the middle
yeah,
of like um of any argument. The sanity is in the middle, it's not in the
I
extreme.
agree,
Yeah.
I agree.
And so, because that's where equality is, in the middle. Like,
Yeah,
you can't be on the extreme of something because it doesn't work. Like, for example, this guy John McWhorter, who wrote this new
yeah,
book called Woke
woke
Racism.
racism, woke
Yeah,
racism. Yeah,
yeah, I thought that was interesting because it's kind of like the extreme left problem of, being condescending to people of color. Like, oh yeah, we'll give you the job and we'll do this and that and social reparations, but then he's basically explaining how, well, no, that isn't helping us either, you know. Um, and I thought that was interesting that like we've got to this point where um even the far left, some guy has to explain to them that they're doing it wrong as well. Like
Right.
that's interesting, right? Because you'd
Right.
think that that would be the last problem you address. So if we're starting to address that, I think that's kind of progress in a way,
Yeah.
right? Like,
I agree.
but like it's still that slow progress of like there's still the two battling sides that don't realize how crazy they are.
Right. Yeah.
And
I
I
agree with that.
and what's crazy is that the social media and cable news is only making those two extremes more. Like though they should
Right.
be a small population, not a big population. And it just seems like people are like there's so many litmus tests. Like COVID was another political litmus test. You know that they make everything political, so you have to decide. It's like they don't want swing voters anymore. They want everybody to
Right.
decide. You
Right.
know, they're forcing people to pick sides
Right.
because and it's like, but if you think about it, if there's no more swing states, then every election will almost be decided before we even vote,
Yeah.
which would be
That's true.
crazy. You know, like I don't know. It's and it seems like the swing states are kind of changing a little bit, like the purple states. It's like there's some new purple states, and some of the old purple states are have picked a side, and it's very
Yeah.
weird. Yeah.
Very weird. I agree.
Um, but no, yeah, we're gonna discuss the Dave Chappelle thing too, right? And so
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so we I think agree on a lot of the issues with this, where obviously cancel culture doesn't make sense. Censorship has never worked historically. You can't censor people. Um, and
But it
that
has worked. That's the thing, though. It actually censoring people has worked in our society. It's you know, if you go back to people like Lenny Bruce, you know, who is the patron saint of stand up, you know, because of the obscenity laws that drove that, you know, that he was charged with,
yeah.
you know,
But what do you mean that it
censorship.
worked?
Well,
Sorry.
it worked in the sense that, you know, it broke him. You know, it broke him. It broke stand up for a while. You know, I mean, and that again, that was after really big. I don't know if you know Lenny Bruce or if you know
Yeah,
the
yeah,
history about obscenity laws.
yeah,
But I mean, if you think about the censorship aspect of Lenny Bruce and what he was being charged with, you know, when it comes to obscenity, you know, it did work. You know,
but what do you mean it
and
worked? Like it worked in which way? What way? What do you mean?
it kept it kept comedians from really telling the truth. It kept comedians from really saying what they thought and really saying what was really good, especially in the '60s when you're talking about the height of the civil rights movement, and people were censored.
Oh,
You
sorry,
know,
I get what you mean. You
people
mean
weren't allowed to talk about
right.
civil unrest. People weren't allowed to talk about a lot of the
Oh, so you
anti-Semitism.
mean it worked in a literal way. I mean, I'm talking about philosophically. I'm saying philosophically though that didn't work because it just made people more interested in what was being censored. That's what I mean. You know what I mean?
Okay,
Like
I agree with that
that's what
too.
I mean by
I agree.
historically censorship has
I
never
agree
worked
with that.
because it just advertises things and makes people more interested. And so that's what I mean. I get what you mean, but I didn't mean it like that. But that's
No,
interesting
no,
that
no.
we had language is very I have to try to be more articulate. And like with the Dave Chappelle special, I think it was very well done and he did like start to redeem himself and be more thoughtful and it was a really good special. 90% of it is great. But the part that where it kind of gets awkward, but also I say 90% because when he said he wasn't going to talk about it anymore, I thought that was pretty telling and very basically like that he was growing and realizing that I don't have the right to talk about this because I'm not trans basically. And I think that's kind of basically what he was saying. And so like he basically gets it in a way, but also what was so weird was that the premise of some of his jokes were still that they're choosing to be that way, and that's just weird because he's such a smart person, but it's like how do you not get that this is not a choice? Like
Yeah, this
I
is
don't
what
know.
we disagree on. I
Yeah,
think this is
yeah.
the biggest thing that we disagree. In our conversations to each other, what we disagreed on was the idea that transgender was a choice. And what I've always said, what I said to you in our private conversations, and what I've always seen with my experiences with transgender people was that transitioning is a choice. Like the
Okay.
idea that gender being in your head and changing your gender from what's in your head from what's between your legs to what's in your head is a choice.
Okay.
And I think that it behooves transgender people to take responsibility for that choice. I mean, it doesn't mean that you deserve to be attacked or you deserve, to be assaulted. It doesn't mean that at all, but it does mean that you are making, a life-altering, life-changing choice that is gonna, it means that, life's gonna be really different for you. And people are going to treat you differently, and you have to be okay with that. You have to make peace with it. You have to, thicken your skin.
Yeah.
And I've known a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I've known quite a few transgender people, and I have transgender friends. I've had transgendered lovers, so I mean, I've been around transgender people for a good 20 years now. And I understand that, I understand that those people are making a choice,
Hmm.
and I think that they have to, I think that they, would like to believe that, that it's everyone else making a choice. But I think that, I think on some level they do realize that, okay, I've made a choice to be like this,
Yeah.
and I have to take responsibility for it. I have to own it, and I think that's important to do. I think it's important that people who change, like I said, change their gender from what's between their legs to what's in their head, that they own those choices. And so
Yeah.
I think that's what we disagreed on, was that the idea that, gender's a choice. Now I agree, because I mean there is science behind the idea that gender is not just between your legs, that it is in your head. And I'm totally, I agree with that. I agree that the gender is there's a lot of study about brain patterns of how, people who have penises have female brains. There's a pattern, there's female brain patterns,
Yeah.
um, for men, and so I agree that, I just agree that gender is just not all between your legs. I agree with that idea
Yeah.
and that sentiment. But I think the idea of transitioning, I think that, what I'm talking about really is transitioning, because I've been there. I've been present for some post-op surgeries, and they are not pretty. And I've seen
In what
people who
way?
have
Physically or emotionally or both?
all of it. I've
Okay.
seen how I've been there, too specifically, where I was present for the post-op surgeries, and I was there for the tears. I was there for the hand holding. I was there for the blood. You know what I mean? And so I've seen the whole full circle happen, with quite a few people, and it's not pretty.
Are you
And
saying that they regretted it or what?
I'm
Like
saying
what
that they had to
wasn't
come first.
pretty? Sorry.
The idea of transitioning, the idea that, being, changing your gender and cutting out and amputating your penis,
Hmm.
you know, um, and the medication that you have to take, after a post-op surgery, and what it does to your brain, what that medication does to your psyche. I've been there for that, and I've seen it up close and personal. I didn't watch it on CNN or MSNBC. Like, I mean, I actually had friends where I had to be at their bedside. I've had that happened to me twice, once in New York and once in South Carolina, where I've been there for the hormones. I've been there for the hormone change.
Yeah.
And where people, where those people in particular, they had to come to terms with the idea that they have made a life altering choice that they can't take back. They can't go back. They can't, you know,
Take
they
back.
can't go back to. Right. They can,
Yeah.
it's like, I've made a decision. This is gonna last. This is gonna have, life altering, life changing, effects, for however long. And
Yeah.
they had to come to terms with it. And so I don't know if they really regretted it. I mean, I've talked to both those people are
Okay.
still alive and still in my life. So I mean, the two people I'm talking about who transitioned, where I was like really there for their transition, I'm still
Oh, so
friends
they
with
are
them, and
happy with who they
they
are.
are happy. They are
Oh, that's
happy. But
good.
I,
Okay.
but like I said, I mean, they had to come to they had to I had to I watched them come to terms with the idea that they made a choice, that they started out as men, and that they felt as though in their heart of hearts, their heart and their brain, that they were women, and that they made a choice to transition into women,
Okay.
and that wasn't something that happened to them. It was a choice that they made.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm talking. That's what I think we disagreed on, is that
Okay.
people are making conscious choices to transition, and those choices come with consequences. Those choices come with, um, like I said, I mean, just life altering, shit that you have to deal with, and you can't just, like, argue your way out of. When it
Well,
comes to, people arguing that you're not making a choice. When people argue that you're not making a choice,
yeah.
it gets dicey to me, because again, I've been there for the real shit. I've been there for the real transitions, and it's not pretty. It's not.
Right. But basically what I think is that there's a whole spectrum of like people where they're going to be very happy with their transition because they really believe that they needed it. And then there's some people where they do regret their transition, but I think that's maybe a lesser, maybe not as common as a situation because, but I think it happens because of transphobia where they think they have to transition to fit into a box to check the male or female box correctly. So it's almost like
Right.
society was pushing them into that box and they regretted it because they didn't really feel like it. They just felt society was pushing them that way because of transphobia. And so again, it always comes back for me that transphobia, right? The hate is the problem, not who you are. And so I think it's the
Uh,
same thing.
yeah, I think that's a lot of projection. I think a lot of what you just said is projection. I think a lot of,
Okay.
what we again, like, when you're talking about society and how society is going to perceive you. Like I said, you have to. It behooves someone who's transitioning to get a tough skin, to get a thicker skin, because you are going to have to deal with society's bullshit, and they're not going
Yeah.
to, and they may not accept you. It's going to be harder to get jobs. It's going to be harder to take care of yourself. It's going to be harder to deal with what society's going to lay on you. And
Right.
so,
But the
but I
thing
mean, go ahead,
no, but
go
the
ahead.
thing is that we have to start to promote a culture where um people people shouldn't have to deal with that though. People shouldn't have to deal with the hate. That is
That
more
sounds
wrong.
great. That sounds great, but
Right.
as a black man, I don't see that society that we're talking about. I really think that's like a fantasy. I mean,
No,
I
I
really,
know, but we can agree that the hate is the issue and not somebody's struggle with who they are but in their head and between their legs, right? The hate of that is the
I
problem.
agree. I think,
Right.
I think that they're mutually exclusive. I think that they're mutually exclusive. But in terms of,
Well, they have a
I
lot to
just
do with each other, so I don't know what that means because there's trans people, there's transphobia. But right, the
yes,
transphobia,
I
we
agree.
have to evolve the transphobia out of our culture and accept that there are trans people dealing with a mixture of female and male um, personality, and we have to accept that because if we accept that, then there will be no, they will have no more problems, right? And then there won't be
Um,
transitions that are regretted, right? Because if
but
you
you're
take
putting
the
a lot of that on
transphobia out of
society. I think that's a lot of
society,
projection. That's a lot of that.
but yeah, but
I
what do you
agree
mean
that
by that? Projecting what?
the idea that their problems will be over if we can get rid of transphobia. I
Yeah,
think
but
you're
don't you think
missing.
that that is
Have you ever been around someone on hormones, Rhett?
well, my first episode was with a transgender person I met at an open mic named Grace, and she was talking about her transition that she regretted. And basically, we came to the conclusion that this all happened because of the transphobia and hate that she got in society. And she thought that she was going to be more accepted if she transitioned. But then she realized that she was just unhappy with the transition that she regretted, and that she'd be better if she just detransitioned because she was basically transitioning everything except the surgery, so she was able to go back because she didn't have the surgery, but
Uh,
she had the hormones and everything. But yeah, basically, but I do think that right, you are right in saying right, that's a fantasy world, but still, I think that it is correct to say if you take the hate out of society, then people have no problem with who they are, whether it's a person of color, a gay person, a trans person. There will be no problems with who people are because there is no problems with who people are. It's just the hate is the problem, and the hate doesn't see that it's the problem. That's the problem. The hate will never think that, oh, right, I'm the problem. Well, no, that it it's it's too complicated for them. If they knew that, then they wouldn't hate, right? And so I don't know, like, don't
I
you
think
agree?
we're missing the component that you're missing to your what you're selling here is the idea of hormones. And when someone is transitioning and they are on hormones, if and this is if they're not taking black market shit, they're taking like prescribed hormones. What that does to your psyche when you're transitioning from male to female or even female to male, that does a lot of internal damage. And damage may not be the right word, but it's the word I'm going to use. That damage in that it breaks down your perceptions of who you are. It can cause a lot of internal hatred and internal damage and internal
Right.
strife. Just hormones alone. I'm talking about just the
Right.
hormones. And so, so that's why I say mutually, I use the term mutually exclusive because, what you're talking about with transphobia and what the outside world is going to do to you, that's all completely different from what hormones do to your body, what they do to your brain, what they
Yeah.
do, what when you're trying to transition from I've only known male to female. Like I mean, personally, like I've only really known. I knew one female to male, and I can't get in that's a long story. But the male to female ones, just I'm talking about just the hormones alone can cause